Over 40 million MSMEs exist in Nigeria, employing over 80% of the country's population and contributing about 50% of the country's GDP. Now the biggest threat to the survival of these businesses, central to the economy, lies in their physical approach to interacting and transacting. Now let's take a closer look at access to market and how SMEs in Nigeria can exploit the opportunities. Let's explore all the latest developments in this discourse with Akin Adeoye. He is a business analyst and he joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us, Akin.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now, looking at the current situation of MSMEs in Nigeria, undoubtedly the sector is pivotal to Nigeria's growth, including reducing poverty levels. And as of July 2021, Nigeria's MSMEs accounted for 96% of the total number of businesses in the country, and of course contributed about 50% to the national GDP. However, the issue of market access still lingers despite several economic policies that have been put in place by the government. What do you think is responsible for this?
Well, I'm a bit confused with the statistics you put forward, that MSME constitute about 80% of the businesses in Nigeria. I don't know how the
96%.
Yeah, how it has been categorized and what are the factors used. But it is correct to say that the backbone of any economy lies in the active participation of the SMEs and the micro businesses as well. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that we have the right policies to make this the same in Nigeria.
How do you mean?
Our small businesses, small, medium businesses are always faced with a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties, which make them to continually struggle to even survive, talk less of being able to contribute their quota to national development. And this come in different angles and perspectives. A lot of the businesses are even not properly developed.
You mean the small-scale businesses are not properly developed?
No, not at all. And it is like when you have a baby, the baby will be growing, and when the baby develops well, it's not able to contribute well, even if it is jumping or running or in academic pursuits.
So the lack of development, so the lack of development, is it the responsibility of the business owners or the government?
Majorly, it is the business environment, and that is the problem of government. So you find people struggling to survive. And I will say that most of our businesses are really struggling to survive. One, due to inconsistent government policies. Because if there is one policy and you are struggling to adjust to that policy, by the time another regime comes, the policy will change. And
you know, you mentioned earlier that these policies are really not helpful. When you look at the policies, especially for the Buy Made in Nigeria policy, would you say that is not helpful?
Oh, it is definitely not helpful. It's not consistent. And to a large extent, may not be properly realistic.
How?
You buy what is available and what is available in the country. Many, particularly the productive or the manufacturing sector, is suffering from several difficulties, mainly due to, well, multiple taxation is there, but power, bad roads, and this make the very, very unstable exchange rate. Because a lot of the inputs they use, I don't want to use the word raw materials, a lot of the inputs are imported, and with the unstable regime of the exchange rate, you find it difficult to even plan. If you get to the market today to buy something, by the time you come back tomorrow, the price has gone up. When you want to sell it, you are not too sure of how to sell, because the customer who is coming to buy from you has limited income. So you cannot jack the price up. It will just walk up to another person.
So would you say that inflation has a role to play in all of this? Because we know that daily the prices of goods and services are on the increase.
Inflation has more than a role to play, if I can use that terminology. Inflation, there's nothing bad in inflation. But what we normally do in business development, you look at the trend, and with the trend you use this in planning. But it is difficult to put this into good perspectives. Inflation too affects several aspects of our life. Is it cost of transportation you want to think of? Is it cost of the cost of doing business generally is not stable. So all these things go a long way to make the life of the SMEs very difficult. And once the life of the SME is difficult, the SME is not able to contribute its quota to national.
But if you look at global statistics, you discover that the rate of ease of doing business is on the increase in Nigeria. But small-scale business owners are saying that they still have difficulties in getting loans, in having to drop collaterals and all of that. How do we marry these two facts together?
Even before we get to the level of looking for collateral, what is the cost of fund? Because, what's the interest rate? If you put up a business plan which will show the cost of the project of the business, this is your own contribution, and that is what you are able to put in. You need additional funds which you want to raise through banks, and by the time you look at how long it takes you to even get this fund together from the bank, you will be growing gray hair. Apart from that, if you now look at the cost, what's the average lending rate in the country now? And you cannot see any business that can talk of a profit margin that will be sufficient to accommodate the high cost of fund. And if you want to put all that on the business, then you may not be competitive. And that is actually one of the major reasons why our SMEs cannot do very well. Look at it across the sector. Is it agri sector? Look at if you try to raise a chicken in your house, freeze it and so on, and bring it to the table, and you want to look at how much will it cost you per kilo, the imported one, you will find that it is far cheaper. And by the time you give your friend money or you give your wife money to buy chicken, they will struggle with the little fund you will have to maintain your family. They will struggle to make ends meet. Then in the process, they will go for the ones that is more economical.
And this is highly due to the high cost of getting the raw materials, as you said, because, for instance, they cannot even import maize anymore because it has been banned. And this is what they would use in feeding the local chickens.
Yes, you ban maize because you want to improve or increase local production. But the logistics, those things that you require to stimulate the growth is not available. The fertilizer is not there, the caterpillar that you need
But the federal government has talked about different policies and projects to provide fertilizer, provide all manner of, what's it called now, these inputs for farmers. Is it that these projects are just mere words and not being actioned?
I think apart from being words, they are just good enough for the television or for the newspaper. Because the average farmer does not really enjoy this. Something that we have not really learned to take into consideration in this country is something we call impact analysis. If you make a pronouncement or you make I think what's the general word that government uses now, they will just push money into something. And I don't know, it came up during the COVID era. There's one part.
Palliatives?
No, palliative, intervention.
Okay, intervention.
Yeah, and they say this is this intervention they are doing. Now, it's good on the surface, but what is the impact of that intervention? How far has that...
So there's no follow-up policy to check how it is working?
Yeah, it is, but we need to go beyond the follow-up. How effective, I think that's the word, how effective has it been? You are making a road that will take... That is probably about 100 people are struggling to pass the road. Then you say you are trying to widen the road. You should be able to go back and say that, is that road, how many more people has the intervention
impacted?
Yes, how has it impacted on the life of the people?
All right, let's take a short break. We'll be back to talk more. Please don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is still Business Breakfast, and I still have here Akin Adeoye, a business analyst. Now, let's look at your assessment of the present state of cross-border trade in West Africa, especially as it has to do with access to market for small-scale holders.
Well, I see myself more as a business development specialist. And looking at considering the impact of cross-border trade on our businesses, I think it has not been a good story all along. Closing and opening of the border appears to be something that most often is not well thought of.
The one that happened in 2019, August 2019, would you, if you were to assess it, would you say it was really helpful in boosting the economy?
No, it was ill-advised.
How do you mean?
Largely, I always look at the effect on local businesses and look at the effect on the local consumers. Because at the end of the day, they are the receiving end. The border was closed. Prices of commodity just went up. Is it rice? Is it groundnut oil? Is it, just name it.
But we saw some farmers saying that it boosted their production because we saw more people patronizing locally made rice, especially.
But was it sustainable? When you want to develop a business, you don't look at the tomorrow result alone. You want to see the effect, the tomorrow after the tomorrow after the tomorrow. And that will make if they are able to grow the local food, maybe 30%, then it should go to 35, 40, 50. Then we know that we have been able to solve that problem.
So it should have been a gradual process.
I think before you do it, you put some things in place to help the local farmer. What happened? The border was closed. This commodity became scarce, so the price jumped up.
And even the local one was expensive.
Oh yes, it is very, very expensive. And apart from the fact that people were complaining that it's not probably the taste of something that they want, which to some extent you need to take into consideration, because if they are not satisfied, people will move. People have actually moved from eating rice now to eating some of this artificially made food, Indomie, spaghetti, whatever it is.
Which you mentioned brands.
Which we don't even produce. So the effect is that if you want to close the border for a particular thing, it may not, complete closure of the border is not helpful, because it's it affects both sides. People from the other countries come here to buy, is it our soap, plastic products, and so on. They use for making buckets. If you see these trucks going back, they don't go empty. You see them loaded. Other plastic shoes and so on. Now you close the border, they cannot come to buy from us. We cannot go to buy from them. So it is even hurting us more.
So you say it's counterproductive?
Oh yes, completely.
Now let's look at this issue of the AfCFTA. Now the general optimism around the promise of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, like other free trade agreements, will be inevitable, create winners and losers. But some economy experts have expressed their doubts over the effectiveness of the trade agreement. Now I'd like to know, how much impact would it have, especially as the government of the day, President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, has signed to the AfCFTA?
Yeah, but before signing it, I think, again, we need to have studied what effect we think it will have on us. Most of the countries around us depend on largely on the French economy. And their currency is, to a large extent, being supported by France. Here we are in the middle. Nigeria is very big, a big brother. What do we gain from it? That is something that we really need to to consider seriously.
But one would expect that before it was signed on by President Muhammadu Buhari, there were consultations done with economic experts.
Yeah, but I think
who would have considered all these factors you mentioned.
In our country presently, there is a lot of weight being given to political consideration far more than the economic benefit. There's something in economics that we call the social cost benefit analysis. If you do that, what is the economic rate of return? What's the impact on the economic development? But it is more from the political, or as a big brother, this is what we are doing, and we are doing it to help them, which to a large extent may help them, but has it really helped us? And is this what we really need? Not at a stage where our currency is really suffering from this era of instability. Where, look at the Naira to the CFA. That was the one that the CFA appears to have gained and probably running at par with us. Look at the Naira with the CD in Ghana. So where do we stand? How has it really helped? And if you have a good knowledge of trend analysis, this is what should have been done to predict that if we do it this way, there is some sensitivity that you should do. If we do it this way, what will be the impact? If it is this way, what will be the impact? I'm not too happy that they might have been done, but they were not taken into proper consideration before the signing of the agreement.
So you're saying it's not beneficial in any way?
To a large extent, I cannot see how it has benefited us. Apart from just shooting us up as a big political brother.
Now, looking at the IMF projected that Nigeria's economy will contract by minus 3.4% by the end of 2020, and the country's economy is projected to recover to 2.4% by 2021. How best can MSMEs in Nigeria latch on this and take advantage of it?
I must admit that I don't know fully what the IMF has taken into consideration before coming to this. But the MSMEs generally need to look at the areas of popular demand, of which products are moving, and see how best they can.
But we still run a largely import-based country.
There's very little we can do to fully depend on locally sourced materials. Even say Agro, on the surface, you want to buy a product that is made locally. The inputs for the agri sector, they are sourced from overseas. I mentioned fertilizer. Even the diesel that you need to run your generator on the farm, it's not stable. The cost is going up. When you even think of inputs, seedlings and so on, are we able to produce enough seedlings to do? We mentioned chicken the other time. We thought of maize. We don't even have enough maize to keep it going. The cassava, as soon as you want now to use cassava for some industrial product, the people who depend on it on food will come. Coconuts that we need to have been able to produce so well, coconut industry shut down because there was not enough coconuts that will go into it. What are we doing with rubber? Most of the rubber, the tire producing companies, not most, all of them, they have departed to go out. So it's not just a question of saying, oh, this material is grown locally. What do you need? What are the inputs that you need to grow it locally in sufficient quantity that will now be able to feed the... I mean, the maize, we eat a lot of corn during the season. But at that time, we are competing with what should have been used to feed the chicken. So before going into such policies, you need to increase substantially the ability to produce such things in very large quantities and find ways of doing them, of growing, let's say, maize all the year round. And we did some very good research in palm kernel. Unfortunately, the benefit of the research is being enjoyed by Malaysia.
Let's look at one of the ways that these small-scale businesses can sell their products and have access to markets, especially when you talk about trade fairs and exhibitions. What do you think the federal government can do, especially for the business membership organizations who organize these trade fairs? Can there be policies that will make sure and ensure that they bring on only locally made goods, so as to improve the purchase or the patronizing of these goods?
No. You have touched on so many fields of interest to me, and I think I would struggle to take them one by one.
We have 5 minutes though. No, you can.
The major problem, I see that the way trade fairs are organized, they are not done in a way to get good results. The trade fairs are expected to showcase research findings, ITA, FURO, and all those things. Whatever they have done, they bring it to the trade fair. So people on the other side, they now see, yeah, this is a new way of touching on that one. And they will now know that there is a better way of growing cassava, another way of growing yam. So they will take this back. Now, you mentioned the BMOs, and that's the Business Membership Organization. They are the main They should be the main organizers of trade fairs. And there's nothing we need to do to make it a national affair. If you make it a regional, to a large extent, it will be very good. Another thing that people do during trade fairs, people now bring their products to sell. The rare people, they will bring it to sell. The chin-chin making people will bring it, put in a lot of packaging and so on. With a view,
but will the foreign goods still find their ways into the trade fairs?
They can even find their way. Well, are the people able to purchase these foreign goods? And if they bring in the foreign goods, the major problem our SMEs have is the inability to be competitive. If they are competitive, you don't even need to make too much noise about foreign or local. People will just go for the most economical to them.
So let's wrap this up quickly. What's the way forward? You talked about our MSMEs being competitive enough. What are the things they can do to achieve this?
They are not competitive. To be competitive, they don't need to produce their own electricity. They don't need to produce their own water. They don't need to produce their own security. They don't need to struggle to bring their products to the market. Look at the state of the roads and so on. So to a large extent, the business environment really needs to be improved upon greatly, such that the micro, small, medium enterprises can be competitive, so that the entrepreneurs who go into such areas, they have less problems to think of. They will just concentrate on producing, maximizing their production, at very good efficiency.
So by extension, the government should provide these resources that you said they shouldn't be providing themselves.
Oh yes, that's the business environment. You should make the environment to be attractive. That's why some of our big industries have moved. And by moving out of the country, their inputs, we still need the tire that they are producing, which they are now bringing. If the tires that were produced here, if the cocoa industries that were doing well here before now produce here, you can now see that and the products will be here.
All right, thank you so much, Aki Adeoye, business analyst. Thank you for your time on the show this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.